You're watching Medfield TV, Community Shows.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Richard Knights, who's with Modifier Car Club of Wellesley. And he is our chauffeur giving us this tour of the campus. And actually a number of the vehicles from Modifiers is right along the road here. And we're starting the tour out past the Great Lawn, which is in the front of the Medfield State Hospital. And you can see all the cars are starting to come in here. This is for the Antique Car Show, the 16th Annual Antique Car Show. This is the third consecutive year that it's been held here at Medfield State Hospital. So we can drive on a little bit, and we're heading down toward the Stone Gate, which is the main entrance into the Medfield State Hospital. Okay, this is the main entrance into the Medfield State Hospital off of Hospital Road. And we call this section of the campus the Arboretum area, or the southeast entrance. So what I'm going to be explaining is some of the highlights of the master plan, the preferred master plan that the master plan committee has developed. This area here has lots of very significant, important trees, big maples, elms, and it's located close to Hospital Road, so it's a very logical place to get started. And these are old cottages that were used by staff and also as sort of a halfway house for patients that were leaving. We think all of these old cottages will be taken down, and instead we're going to replace this with approximately 25 small homes, single family and duplex homes, suitable for people that want to downsize. And it has, you can see over here, a beautiful view of a big hayfield off to the east. On the left side is what we call the East Building. This was the females attendance building. So it's a very large building. Architecturally, it's a very interesting building. And what we're going to propose for this is use this for millennial housing. So this would have perhaps 18 units that would be suitable for one bedroom, studios, that type of thing for millennials that are just getting started. It's a beautiful building. Actually, I've been inside the building, toured it. It has a very good layout for this type of use. And again, it has the advantage of being looking out to the east to the sunrise and to the big hayfield on the right. After driving around, we're going to do a little loop so we can see the front of the building. This is the back side of the building. We're heading north toward Dover right now. This area here is also part of the State Hospital property. We think that this would probably be used, in addition obviously for the water supply, it would be used for parking. It would be a parking area, and community gardens. There's a big agricultural history to the hospital, and there's a lot of interest in having, small gardens, community gardens. So those would be located back in this area. And parking would be good because it'll give close access to the hospital. The total property is approximately 128 acres of land that the town bought.
Handicap accessible.
Yep. These are some of the original dorms that were used, and we think that we'll go around the corner here. We take a sharp left turn here, and then we'll come back on the next road that's just in here. One of the things we're trying to do is preserve as much open space as possible. In fact, we're trying to enhance open space. The plan has approximately 78 acres of open space, so you can see a high percentage of it is open space. Right in front of us is part of that. We're going to actually expand it. You can just take a sharp left here, and this will be the town square, we call it. So you can see that it was used actually once for a baseball field for Little League, and the hospital actually had baseball teams. There's a basketball court at the end. This building here is the old food service building. And the plan here is to actually take this building down because we think it doesn't really fit architecturally into the rest of the campus. You can see it doesn't fit into the Queen Anne architectural style. This section here would be devoted for senior housing. One of these buildings, for example, that one could be used as a group home. And then we think this string of buildings now, we saw from the back side, now here's the front side, would be an ideal CCRC, a community care retirement community. And actually, the buildings would be probably tied together. So whereas they're separate buildings, we think that a logical thing to make enough floor space so that it really works as a CCRC would be to connect these together. So this would be
All three of these buildings.
Yeah. And these are very big. I mean, you can see how large this particular building is. So it has a lot of characteristics, amenities for that. And a CCRC could be independent living, so it could have that aspect to it. Apartments or condos that are, for people that, want to live in a community like this. But then if they needed more care, there'd be other sections that would be for assisted living and assisted care. And then eventually, if there's a need, they could move on to more nursing care. There's even the plan, and I don't know if we'll be able to see it, to put in a center for memory disabilities, Alzheimer's, that type of thing, disabilities like this, as part of it. So that would be this whole section of the east side of the campus would be for those types of activities. Now on the right side, and we'll take a right at the next street, this whole area we've designated as a cultural hub, a cultural center. Medfield has a lot of interest and talent in music and theater, visual arts, paintings, that type of activity. So we're going to go past basically the cultural hub that would be a number of buildings here. We're passing now, this is the classical Lee Chapel, which was the kind of the hub or the center for the whole campus. It's an iconic building. And then next to it is the building that is called the infirmary. And again, the thought is to connect these two buildings so that we have a much larger amount of floor space for the arts and cultural activities in these buildings. And there's a whole plan that's being developed to do that. Also, some of these buildings on the other side, on the left, at least two of these, could be used for living and arts community. People that want to live in in an apartment here, but also have a work-live opportunity. So some of the buildings, two of them at least on this side, would be suitable for that. Now we're turning onto the west side of the campus, and this whole area, these buildings would be for housing. These would be apartments that could become condominiums for purchase. Architecturally, we think that's the best use for these units. These were formerly dormitory units for the hospital, but could be converted for that. And you can see how beautiful the landscaping is. I should point that out. One of the things about the plan is that we're trying to preserve as many of the buildings as possible, and also as many of the trees and the landscaping as we can. We think that that the designers of the campus at that time, at the turn of the century, had just excellent taste and ideas about how to make this a community, a pleasant community to walk around, to exercise, to get outside, so that we're trying to preserve as much of that as we possibly can. This is used a lot now for people walking dogs and
The dog's having a great day.
yeah, dog walking and people getting exercise. I come up here quite a bit, and it's constantly being used for that purpose. We'll take a right here. This now, we're at the north end, or approaching the north end of the campus. These units, these buildings here would also be used for residential housing. To give you an idea of the numbers, I don't want to get too bogged down in it, that we're talking about on the order of of 294 to 315 total units for the whole campus, okay? Roughly 60% of the floor space would be for residential uses, but we have a lot of space for commercial as well. For example, in the building off to the right, part of that would be, after we take down the food service building, would be used for maybe a farm-to-table restaurant, shops, retail shops, that type of thing. So roughly 26% is commercial, 8% is civic, and about 4% of the square footage in our preferred plan is for arts and culture. Now we're up at the north end of the campus now. We call this field to the right here the North Field, and it opens up into another large hayfield. It was used for hay for the original hospital. This building that we're just driving past now is the R building. Our preferred plan is to actually take this building down because, again, we think that architecturally it really doesn't fit into the big scope of the whole overall plan, so it's one to take down. And also, by taking it down, what it does is it opens up the open space looking north on the campus, so that these buildings here, which we just went past the front of them, but they would be just excellent buildings for condos and apartments looking out into that great open space to the right. And by taking the R building down, it really opens up a great deal more open space on the campus. A little bit more on the statistics. In terms of housing, one of the things that we're very aware of and trying to be as supportive as possible is the affordability of housing, meaning 40B requirements and helping the town meet its requirements. So of the residential units, slightly over 26% are affordable units, so it would help meet that. Roughly 74% are market price units, so there'd be a mix. Just in general, our perspective is to have mixed types of housing, mixed types of uses, a combination of not just residential housing, but commercial, retail, and arts. So you can see the balance we're trying to get. And that's being responsive to the numerous surveys and open houses and workshops that we conducted. We're trying to capture all of those interests in a balanced way. And yet the other thing we are doing is looking at the financial impacts all the time to try to make sure that this is financially viable. And by having this blend of housing for rent or for purchase, along with these social benefits, we'll take a sharp right here, it achieves those goals. That's been probably one of the most difficult things, is how to be responsive to all these different interests, but at the same time do something which is viable from three perspectives. From the developer's perspective, so when this goes out for a competitive bid, we would hopefully be able to receive responses to that make it profitable, but also have minimal impacts in terms of from the town's financial perspective. And our financial analyses have shown that can be achieved over the long run with a positive net present value to the town, and have also minimal impact on from the perspective of ratepayers, from taxpayers. I think everyone's concerned that we're going to straight is we want to have minimal impacts. Now we're heading toward west now, toward the Charles River. And one of the real features here of the hospital, go straight, has been the access to the Charles, which is right down this hill. And the state, with agreement with the town, has developed this, what we call the Charles River Gateway, or the Outlook. So this area was developed by the state and is obviously very important from the perspective of the hospital. Go right down the bottom of the hill. So you can see the Charles off in the distance. The other thing to say about this too, I mean, it's a very beautiful view. People use it all the time for dog walking, for hiking, for bird watching. A lot of bird community has come back again. The other thing that's really important about it is this connects to the whole trail network. So all around the hospital, you can see one of the trailheads right here going down. And also it continues on the left side. So this is called the Charles River Link Trail, and this goes all the way in toward Newton. So it's a big trail system. And off on this side, if you walk it, or I ride horseback, if you ride horseback on it, it connects with the Bay Circuit Trail. And the Bay Circuit Trail is this enormous system of trails that runs all the way from the North Shore, from Ipswich, Essex County, all the way down to Duxbury. So it's this enormous trail system. So the hospital is very strategically located in this trail system, and that's one of the reasons why it's an extremely important and valuable piece of property. I might mention that on either side of the main campus we have these large hayfields. These were not part of the acquisition the town made, but are under DCAM, the control, which is a state agency. Eventually, these will be transferred over to Department of Conservation and Recreation, DCR. But this big field over here to the right, for example, was where they did a lot of the farming for vegetables and flowers. It was a big deal here at the hospital. And we'll take a right. So that'll be under their control, although it only can be used for open space like it is now, or it could be used for agriculture again, so it could be used for farming, and for passive recreation, which means that it protects it from any kind of development. So there couldn't be construction. You couldn't put in a high-rise apartment house or anything on it. Okay, now we're going along the west side of the campus. And this is the CAT training academy, or training facility. We think this would be ideal for offices, for commercial, retail types of things, There's a large space inside. It could be used for shows, trade shows, that type of thing. It could be used for different types of artistic things as well. And this area here would be another of the parking spaces, another of the parking areas for the hospital. A lot of concern, a lot of careful details gone into how much parking we need and how to meet the parking needs of the population that would be up here. We think that the overall scheme, the overall layout of this and the types of units that we're recommending would have a minimal impact in terms of number of children, so that it wouldn't have, what we've looked carefully at the impact it would have on schools, and we think that's quite minimal. This final building, which is West Hall, this was the male attendance building, were designated as an inn. And we think that, first of all, the area needs housing. You know, if you have guests coming in from out of town, it's very hard to find a place nearby for them to stay. But this building, first of all, it's very, very nice inside. It was used for the latest in the X-Men series, the return of the young mutants, ninjas. But that would be potential for, a small local inn for people to stay in, either just as visitors into the town or perhaps associated with the cultural, the residents. People have friends in. There's a small building that we're going to, would be right in here, which would be like a visitor center. And, so when people coming in, they want sort of directions to the campus, they could stay in that building right back there. Now we're going to, we're actually going to leave the campus now and go across Hospital Road to see a little other section that's also extremely important as part of our overall plan. This is, of course, the sledding hill, where it's used for a lot of things. In the winter, if there's any snow, kids use it for sliding downhill. I've brought my grandkids over here, and it's a real nice slope, actually. But this is where the farm was located. The Medfield had a very large working farm. It was primarily a dairy farm. And all of the buildings have been torn down, so all of that's gone. But the land is very valuable. First of all, it has a very good view to the west. So a lot of people come up here, to look at the stars, to look at sunset. So the plan here would be, first of all, to preserve the sledding hill. Nobody wants to see the sledding hill go. So this whole area up here would stay just as it is. It'd be used for not just sledding downhill, but used for golf frisbee, for hunts, for the hunt club. We use this as a checkpoint. Down here where all the heavy trees are, that's where the Odyssey House was. And we think that a park and rec facility, the town is looking to put in a new facility for sports and parks and recreation, that would be back in that area, kind of away from the main road, sort of over that. It's a little bit of a slope, but it's where the old barn was, where there's a big dairy barn that was back in there, and it's a nice flat piece of property. It's not particularly great for agriculture, although this whole area is also zoned for agriculture. So the provision in the land disposition agreement that transferred the property allows for 12 acres of land on the sledding hill area to be developed. It doesn't say how it's developed, but it would be potentially used for parks and recreation facility. And the remainder of the land, it's about a total of 48.9 acres. So the remainder of the land would stay as agricultural land or just open space like for the sledding hill. It could be used for agriculture again. Now you can see we're at the front of the campus again, and this is the antique car show that we've been driving around. So you can see a lot of cars are lining up. The Great Lawn, this is a really good example of one use of it. It could also be used for other things like musical events, and then we'll turn in here again. It could be, there's a place where it would be ideal for outdoor theater. You could have movies, you could have jazz concerts or musical events of all sorts. So now we're back at the Stone Gate entrance. You can see the classic stone wall here, and this is where we began. So we've just done a nice driving tour around the Medfield State Hospital and a little bit of explanation of what our plans are for reusing it. And again, this is a suggestion that's in the preferred plan that we'll be presenting and voting on in a special meeting in the fall. And let me again thank you, Richard, for a great.
I enjoyed the tour. I wasn't aware of the number of buildings, even though I've snowmobiled this area years ago, and I used to fly over it when I had a plane over at Norfolk Airport.
That's excellent.
And it always was a spot that I considered, if I had a problem, I could find a place to land there at the state at the hospital grounds.
Yeah. Well, and we want to, again, here's the sign for the Modifier's Car Club of Wellesley, and again, we thank the club very much
it was our pleasure, and we hope that the plans that you're talking about here are carried through.
Okay.
I think it'd be a fantastic use of this beautiful piece of property.
Great. Thanks so much, Richard.
Okay.
You're watching Medfield TV, community shows.